So this session is all about build real-time web application with Node.js. So normally most of the developers, they will be having idea about the traditional technologies, that is Java, .NET or PHP. So if you ask them like, okay, can I build any other server-side programming with JavaScript? So they will be surprised, because till this time they are thinking like, okay, we can use JavaScript only on client side. If you want to do anything on the server side, we have to opt any of these technology. Instead, now we can write JavaScript on our server side as well as in the DB. If you are using Node.js as a server, we will be writing all the programs in JavaScript. In the same way, if you are writing, if you have a database as a MongoDB, we can write all this MongoDB logics, everything in a JavaScript. So using only one language, JavaScript, you can build an end-to-end application from your client side to database. So in this particular webinar, we will be discussing about this following topics. One is introduction to Node.js. Here we will be discussing what is Node.js and why do we need to use Node.js. Because we have more developers in the traditional applications or traditional technologies. Then why do we need to opt a new technology? So there might be some kind of risk also might be there. So why do we need to go? So we'll be answering for those things in the slide. Next one, what is the use of NPM? And first, what is NPM? So normally NPM means Node Package Manager. So here it is not developed by a core Node team. So actually the developer, whoever works on Node.js, they can build a module or they can build these components and they can publish these components in the NPM repository. So once they publish these components or modules in the NPM repository, whoever wants, just they can take those modules and they can use it in the application. For example, in Java we will be having a packages. So you can't write everything from the scratch. So if you want to have some kind of functionality, just take that particular package and include it in your application. So we should be able to access all the functions available in this package in your application also. In the same way, if I want to use some other functionalities, I don't want to build that functionality from the beginning. So you can go to this NPM repository. Over there, if you find that specific functionalities, just you can take it from there and you can include it in your application. Okay, so this is a basic about NPM. So how can I install NPM in our system? So once you install Node.js, automatically you will be getting NPM also. So from this NPM, you can install all other components like a global or a local components, whatever you wanted to install, just you can install it. So next one is Express framework in Node.js. Node.js is just an environment. On that environment, you have to build a program, right? So if you want to write everything from the scratch, that will be really difficult. For example, you have to use the core node module, that is a HTTP and other stuff. So you have to build each and everything. Instead of that, we can choose any of the frameworks available in the market like Kova, Kapi or Express framework. In this particular webinar, we will be discussing about the Express framework in Node.js. So how can I use this Express framework in Node? And what is the features or functionalities are available in Express? Then why do you need to choose Express? Next one is how to create a web services. This is the really important one. Normally in our Java or .NET, what do we do? We will be creating or we will be exposing the RESTful APIs. So from the client, just they can hit this RESTful APIs and they will be able to get all these responses. It can be the client can be a mobile device or whatever it is. That doesn't matter. So in the server side, they will be exposing the web services and they will be sending a request from the client and they should be able to get all the responses. In the same way, here in Node.js also, we can create all these RESTful APIs. At last, we'll be discussing something about the MongoDB configuration with Node.js and how can we save the data into MongoDB or how can we retrieve the data from this DB. So these are all the things we will be discussing in our webinar. Then first, what is Node.js? So Node.js is an open source cross-platform environment for the server-side networking application. So here, this is an environment. It is not a library. Normally, whenever we used to call it as a Node.js, they are thinking, okay, it is something like a jQuery or AngularJS. Just there will be a one JavaScript file and we can include it in the application. It is not that. So, however, you are setting up the environment for Java. So, in the same way, we can set up the environment for Node.js also. So, once you install this Node.js in your local machine, so it is normally the Node.js is built with C++. Okay, most of you guys know Google has built one engine called V8. Normally, that particular engine only is available in our Google Chrome browser. So whatever the JavaScript you are writing, that will be compiled on this particular Google's V8 engine. Then whatever the functionality we return on this JavaScript, that you can access it. In the same way, Node.js also internally uses this Google's V8 engine. So whatever JavaScript you are writing on top of this Node.js environment, that will be compiled and it will give you the result. So here you have to understand clearly, the Node.js is not a library or a script file. It is an environment. On top of this Node.js, you can write any JavaScript, it will be compiled and it will give a result. And you can use this Node.js as a server-side component. So, however, we have some other server-side languages like Java.NET. You can interact with the client as well as you can interact with the DB also. The DB can be MySQL or whatever it is, MongoDB, whatever DB. Just you can connect it via NPM modules. So here, however, we have this kind of APIs, right? In the same way, we can create APIs in our Node layer also. Okay, so this is a basic thing about the Node.js. Then why do I need to use this Node.js? What is the advantage over other technologies or other languages? So first one is Node.js is a single thread. Okay, if it is a single threaded, the performance will be poor, right? Because whenever you create a multi-threaded programming, then only you can access the parallel processing and other stuff. So you are telling this is single threaded. Then each and every time only one thread will be processed and the performance will be deadly slow. It is not like that. So here what will happen is actually Node.js will be having only one, it will be having only one thread and internally it has its own thread pool. So each and every event or request you are passed to this Node.js environment, that will be moved to the event loop. From the event loop, the internal Node.js thread pool takes this event and parallelly process all these events. And here the one more thing what you have to see is each and every event will be having its own callback method. So for example, just consider I have two events. One is I want to read a file and another one event is I wanted to write something into a file. Now right here what I am going to do, first I am going to write some data into a file. Consider that is a very huge amount of data, it will take 5 minutes or 5 seconds. The next event is just 3 seconds. So if it is a synchronous programming, what will happen, first it will execute your first event or first process, that will be taking 5 minutes. Next your second process, that will be taking like 2 minutes. Totally it will take 7 seconds to complete all these two processes. But JavaScript is asynchronous programming and in the same way in Node.js also will be working on the same asynchronous programming. So once you pass all these events to the event loop, each and every event will be having its own callback method. Then this particular function will be passed to your Node.js thread pool. These all the events will be processed parallelly, then it will give the result. Actually we fire the first event as writing some data into a file, that will take 5 seconds. And the next event is you are reading some data from the file, that will take only 2 seconds. Now the second event will get the response. So that callback will send to this event loop. Then each and this particular event will be having its own callback. The callback gets called and you can give the response to that particular event or the service. So first you will be getting a response for your second data because that is taking only 2 seconds. Next you will be getting a response for your first event. Okay, so this is what we are calling it as a non-blocking mechanism. Normally in the synchronous application, till the first process completes, the second process is blocked. It is never blocked in Node.js because each and every processes or events will be processed parallelly and you will be getting the responses because of its own callback methods. So this is the best advantage of Node.js over some other technologies. Next, basics of Node.js. That is, the main thing is NPM. So NPM stands for Node Package Manager. So here it is not actually built by this Node.js developer. So whoever the developer available out there, so they used to create these kind of modules and they can push it into a repository. You can create your own NPM modules. So once you create this NPM modules, just you can push it to a repository. Whoever wants, just they can Google for this module and they can get it from there. So before we proceed further, let me show you where can we get all these NPM modules. So just go to Google and Node NPM modules. Here in this npmjs.com, you can get all these modules. Right here, these are all the famous modules out there. One is the Express. Express is a famous framework what is available for Node.js. Next one is the Grunt CLI. So this is for all the task runner and other stuff. We'll be using this Grunt CLI. In the same way, we have Bower. So if you want to download any other client-side components, you will be using Bower. So in the same way, there will be n number of modules will be available out there. So if you want to know more details about this module, just go inside this module and here you can see everything. How to install this particular module in your machine. One is npm install Bower. So you'll be getting that module. Next one, you can see who are all the developers or contributors contributed for this particular module. So you can see everyone's information. Then if you want to look this code of this particular module, just you can go through this GitHub repository also. All the code will be available on this particular module, so you can take a look. Next one, so whatever the issues are there in the module, all the details will be available here in this npm repository. In the same way, sometimes, so this Bower and Grunt, everything is a famous module, so directly you can use it. But sometimes you can get some kind of new modules. So first you have to check these statistics. How many people are using this module? So that you can see it from right here. So totally the last day itself, like 80,000 downloads happened for this module. So in the same way, you can see totally in this particular month, there are 2 million users are using this Bower component. So if 2 million users are using, you will get to know, okay, there are not many issues. You can believe it and you can use these kind of modules. Otherwise, sometimes there will be only 2 or 3 users will be using it. So that will be a dummy module. Anyone can create the modules, right? So you have to make sure we have more downloads and there is not much issues also. Here you can see there are total 215 open issues are there in the Bower components. So you can see all the details right here. And so each and every module will be having a dependencies or it will be dependent with some other module also. So here you can see what are all the dependencies we need for this Bower, all the information you can get it. In the same way, what are all the other modules dependent on this Bower? So that information also right here. So these modules are using Bower internally. This is the basic thing about npm repository. So next, let me go over there. So here, what are all the things you can do? One is you can get the modules For example, someone has developed this module. If you want to access this module in your application, just you can get it from there. It is very simple. Yeah, npm install and by that particular module name. So it will take that module from the repository and it will put it in your local machine. So here itself there is two way of installing this npm packages. One is locally you can install it, otherwise globally. So what is the difference between installing the packages in your application locally and globally? Consider I have one basic Node.js application. Whatever module I am downloading from this npm, I wanted to use it only in my application now. I don't want to use it anywhere else. Then we will be installing it locally. So this module will be available only in your application. So outside of this application, if you try to access this module, you won't get it. This is what the local npm package is. Instead, some of the modules you can access it for all the projects like grid. So the same task runner you can use it for all other projects also, or bower. So the same thing we'll be using to download all the client-side components for everywhere. So these modules are, you can install it as a global module. So wherever you are, that doesn't matter. You can access this module and you will be able to get the information. This is the two different way of installing packages using npm. Next one, how can we install this kind of modules? One is just npm install module name, it will install it locally, or npm install -g, that module name, it will install the same module globally. So you can access it from anywhere. Once you install these modules, so how can I access it? So the same way, consider again, let me take this Java example. I have downloaded this package and I included in my Java application also. So how can I access those packages? So you'll be using some kind of import and whatever the package name. So you should be able to get all the functions. But right here, we'll be using a method called require and that particular package name. Using this particular package name, you should be able to get all the functionalities available in this particular package. So this is how we will be using Node npm in our Node.js. So before we go into the Express, do you guys have any other questions? If you have any other questions, please post it in your question window. So from Ajit, we have a question. So in Java server side also, we can run two threads parallelly. So then why do I need to go for the Node.js? Nice question, Ajit. Here, the main thing is, if you want to do this multi-threading in Java or .NET, you have to do a lot of the things. You have to configure everything. But right here in Node.js, you need not to configure all these kind of multi-threading concepts. It is internally built on Node.js. It is having its own thread pool. Automatically, it will process all these kind of requests parallelly. So that is the main advantage. So that we can do it in the Java also, but the only thing we have to write all these multi-threading concepts. That is only the difference. So do you guys have any other question regarding this npm or a node, or we can see a small demo on this node server. So Astosh is asking, can we deploy a module in binary or compiled format in npm? So actually we need not to deploy these kind of modules in the npm. So what you can do is, just it is simple. First you have to add your user ID and password. Create your user ID and password in this npm. Once you create this user ID and password in your local machine, add your user ID and password. Next you can publish your modules. So once you start publishing these modules, all the code whatever you have it in your local machine, that will be uploaded to this particular server. It is like whenever you have a Git repository, we'll be pushing the data to this repository. In the same way, you can publish all these modules or this particular module to the user. So here we need not to compress or need not to have it like a binary or compiled format. So Ashirvad is asking a question. Can you give an example over the archiv's question? Yeah, sure. Anyway, I will give you the basic example about how to build the Node.js program and how can we do this asynchronous programming also. So that we will see it in few minutes. So from Mishra, we have a wonderful question. Sometimes while referencing the package, it refers to the global. If there is updated version already there, then there is a chance of conflict. Exactly. So now what will happen is, consider I have my global package. So that particular global package, I am using it in two projects. In one project, I use the lowest version, like 3 or 4 months before I build this project, I'm using the lowest version. Then in the next project, whatever I'm using, so I wanted to update this global module, I just updated everything. So it is working fine in my second project. But the first project, because of updating that particular global module, it will be causing some more trouble, or it will give a conflicts. To avoid that, so what we can do is, one is you can load those particular packages locally in your machine. Instead of having it as a global module, just you can keep it in the local. That is one way of avoiding this one. Otherwise, better what I'm telling. So whenever you are updating, you will get to know it will throw a conflict because of some other module only. So you can update those modules also. You should be able to resolve the conflicts. Because without updating the old modules, if you are keep on having your same project, means the trouble is later. For now, your project is 3 months or old or something else. Later, after 6 months or 1 year, if you see, all the modules will be the old module. You can't use it anymore. So better, whenever you update the module, so just make sure you are updating all these dependent modules. So for that, what you can do, just go to your root of your project, just type npm update. It will update all the modules. So because of that, your code never breaks. Because whenever they updates the module, mostly they won't delete any other functionality, just they will be adding the new functionalities all over. So the conflict will happen because of some other dependent module which is using your own global module. So using this npm update, which updates all the modules in your project. This is one of the way of resolving those trouble. So Ajit is having a question. So is npm is like a Maven for Java world? Yeah, it is kind of. We can tell like that also. Okay, so let's go for a small demo. Let's see how can we build a Node.js. So first, what you have to do is just go to the nodejs.org and install Node.js in your machine. So once you install Node.js in your machine, so what you can do is, let me open a terminal. So right here, first you have to verify whether you have Node.js in your machine or not. To verify it, just type node-v. Then it will give the version number of your Node.js application. Now I am using version 0.12. In the same way, you have to check whether you have npm or not, because the older version of Node.js, like I think so 2 months or 3 months before, if you guys are installed Node.js, you have to install Node.js then npm also separately. But now it is not like that. Whenever you install Node.js, automatically they are installing npm also. So before, better verify whether you have npm in your machine or not. So npm-v, which gives the version of your npm. Now I am using 2.5.1. Okay, now I have everything in my machine, so I'm good to go. So let's clear everything. Now first I wanted to write a basic Node program in the terminal itself. So how can we do that? Just type node, it will take you to the node terminal. This is what we used to call it as a repo. Right here we can write all this Node.js. So if I want to write anything on this terminal, do I need to know any other special language or something else like a Node.js? Do I need to do anything in other languages? Nothing. Here you can write all this basic JavaScript. That will be compiled and it will give the result. So let's write a basic JavaScript right here. So how can we declare or initialize a variable in JavaScript? Where a equal to 10. Then b equal to 20. So I just declare two variables where a and b. Next, where c equal to a plus b. So now the C will be having A plus B. If you want to see the result of C, what you can do, console.log C. So it gives the data A plus B, that is a 10 plus 20, it gives the result as 30. So this console.log is nothing but however we have a system.out.println. In the same way, if you want to print any other console messages, we will be using this console log. This is the same thing what we used in the client side also. So which prints in the, if you are using the same console log in your client side, it will print all the messages in the browser memory. But if you are using the console log in the server side, it will print everything in your server terminal. Okay, now this is the basic thing we built in Node.js. Okay, can we do any other JavaScript functionality also? Yes, everything you can do it over here. So let's build one more thing. Okay, that's not able to clear. No. So what I'm going to do, for where I equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus. Then right here I can write a console message, console.log. So it gives the result. So it will run this for loop and it gives the result. In the same way, whatever you wanted to do, all this for, if, while, or whatever the operations we have it in our JavaScript, everything is possible in Node.js. Okay, but we are doing it in the terminal. So how can, if we can only do it in the terminal, how can we write programs? It is not possible, right? So now what I wanted to do, I want to write a program in a normal script file or anywhere else, then I want to run that in the terminal, or I want to run it as a application. How can I do that? So let's come out of this terminal, node terminal. Then what we are going to do, so let me create one more folder saying demo 23. So I'm going to create a basic file. I'm going to call it as app.js. I just created an empty file, JavaScript file, that is app.js. Let me open it in the Sublime editor. Okay. Now I got this specific file. Now I want to write a basic Node JavaScript right here, and then we need to run it in the server. So how can I do that? Let's write a basic JavaScript where a equal to 10, comma b equal to 20. Then I'm going to have one more function add, which takes the parameters a and b and which returns a plus b. Then I'm going to call this function where c equal to add of a comma b. So this a comma b will be passed to this function and which returns a plus b, that will be available on c. Then I wanted to print this result, console.log c. Now I built a basic JavaScript program right here. So I wanted to run this on the server. So how can I do that? So let's go to the terminal once again. I don't want this one. Okay. If you see inside, I have only one file saying app.js. So whatever we wrote, so that file will be available on this one. Okay. So now I wanted to run that particular app.js. How can we do this? So to run any other JavaScript program, what you can do, node and app.js or whatever the file name you have given over there, just type the same file name. So once you type that, it gives the result. Hit 30, because first it will go over here, it will initialize A and B, then it will create this function saying add. After that we will be having one variable called c. For that c we are calling a function add with passing these two parameters and returns a plus b. That will be stored in the c. Once that is stored, we are printing c. Okay, we wrote a basic JavaScript program and we ran it through this Node.js. So now we are getting the result as 30. Okay, now this is fine, but I wanted to debug this application also. So simply, if I write all this program or if I do it over here, then how can I debug it? So if we can't debug any other Node application, then it will be really difficult. So if you want to debug the Node application, so what we can do is we can install the global npm module that is called Node Inspector. So if you install this Node Inspector, then you should be able to debug your own Node.js programs. So already I have installed this Node Inspector. So let me show you how to install the Node Inspector also. So to install the Node Inspector as a global module, type npm install -g and node-inspector. So which install a node debug module for you. So just with this node debug, we should be able to debug all this JavaScript file or any other node programs. So let's see how can we debug this same application whatever we built. So node debug and your file name. So once you give this particular file name, what will happen is, so it will launch the same file in your Chrome browser. As we told already, this Node.js is also internally using the Google's V8 engine. So what will happen is we will be having the same engine right there, and so whatever can be compiled in the Chrome browser, we will be getting the same result on your Node server also. That's why it is launching your Node application in this particular Chrome browser. Okay, sometimes if you don't want to open it in the browser, I want to do it in the terminal itself. So what you can do, just you can go for only Node or just debug your application in. But the trouble that is not that much user friendly, like what we have it in this Chrome. So that's why what I'm asking is, so if you want to debug the application, just install the npm module saying Node Inspector, then you can able to debug that application using that particular npm tool. So okay, now it came over here. Now what I want to do, I wanted to debug this application. Just add a breakpoint. So however we used to add a breakpoint in our tools, in the same way we can add it over here. So I added one breakpoint right here and another one right here. So let's resume it. So first it came over here because this is a normal function. Once it comes over here, it will call this add function. If you want to step in, just you can press F10, or if you want to just resume, just press F5. So I want to go to the next step of this particular application. So F10. So it goes to this function and it returns a plus b. So before you return anything, if you want to see the value of those variables, how can you see it? So here in your right hand side, you can see one tab called watch expressions. Right there, you can type all these expressions. Add it, your A. So A, whatever you have it in the application, you'll be getting the response. In the same way, B or C, whatever you want, just you can get all the responses using this watch expressions. Otherwise, just mouse over on those variable name, it will give those data also. So this is how we'll be doing the debugging in our Node application. So let's stop this and we'll see the basic example of npm modules. Now, what I wanted to do is, so here you can see we have this console.log. So what is it doing? Just it is printing the console messages. Now I don't want that. I want to print it like with some kind of colorful text in the terminal itself. How can we do it? That is not possible because when whatever you are writing into the terminal, that will be the not default terminal color. You can't write it through the program. So if you want to do that, so instead of writing everything from the scratch, already one module is available. Just you can include that particular module into our application. How can I do that? First, Google for that module. Let's go back to the Chrome browser. So already we are in this npm. So here, search for a module called chart. Then you can get n number of module. So whatever module you are really interested, just take that particular module. I am interested in this particular chart module. So let's go to the chart module and you will get to know how to use this module. So to use this chalk module, you'll be using npm install chalk. And you can see who are all developed these modules and what is the statistics of this module. So we have 5 open issues and whatever downloads happen, everything you can see it right here. And then how to use this module, that also you can see it on this one. Like if you want to use this module, just take that module, require of the module name. Once you are getting it through the npm, then you have to access it in your application. So for that we will be using require of the module name. We will be getting all the functionalities of this module will be available in this variable. Then chart.blue of something. So whatever you are writing over there, that will be in the blue color. Red, whatever color you are giving right there. So all this console messages will be in that particular style. So you can make it as a bold or whatever you wanted to do, just you can do it through this. So let's see how can we use it. So I wanted to include the same chalk module right here. So I'm going to my terminal. I want to get the chalk. So before that, let's see what are all the files we have. So we have only one file called app.js. Now I'm going to include that chalk module. npm install chalk. So it will fetch the chalk module from this npm repository and it will add it in our local. So it will take few minutes. Okay. Now you can see this chalk module has been added to our local machine. Let's see what are all the things we have. ls, you can see we have one file called app.js and one more directory called node modules. So if you see that inside this node modules, you can see the module whatever we install the chalk. In the same way, if you want to install n number of modules for your application, all the modules will be available underneath this node underscore modules folder. So automatically this folder will be created. You can see all the modules, whatever you wanted to use it in your application, the modules will be available. So okay, now I have included chalk, but I wanted to use this chalk in my program. How can I do that? So let's go back to the program. If you want to use any other installed module, just use that where chalk equal to, or you can name whatever you want. Just I'm going to give the same name, so that will be easy for me. That's right. Then if you want to use or access those modules, require your module name. So we'll be getting the chalk module, and this chalk module reference will be passed to this chalk. Next, I wanted to print it the same message whatever we are giving. So I'm going to change a little bit. Result is C. So let's run this program. Node app.js. So whenever you run this module, you can see it on result is 30. But instead of showing it in the white color, I want to show it in some other color. So let's see how can we do that. So I'm going to use the chart dot green dot bold of whatever the message I wanted to print. Just you can give all this message. So this will be considered as the whole string and it will pass to this particular chart functionality. So the chart is internally having objects like a green and the bold. So we are passing this particular string. So whenever we run this program, we should be able to get the same text in the green color. So let me save this, go back here and run. Now you can see the text become green color. In the same way, we use this module for a sample use. Like that, you can use n number of modules. Like Express also you can use that as a framework, and other global module if you want to include, you can include it using like that. So all these global modules will be available wherever your root folder of your node. So over there, if you see, you can get all the global node modules. In the same way, if you want to get all these local node modules, go to your project. You can see one folder called node underscore modules. From there, you will be able to get all the node modules what are available for your project. This is basics about Node.js programming and NPM. Do you guys have any other questions regarding these two? If yes, please post your questions on the question window. So from Ajit, we have a question. So can we call this JS from client side also? So this is a normal JavaScript functionality, right? So if you want to access it, you can access it in your client side. It will give the same result. Create a normal HTML page. Inside the HTML page, include the script. So you should be able to get the response. But here consider the one more thing. Now we are not at all using any other server-side components. Instead, sometimes if you want to use the server-side component like Express things and other stuff, if you try to use those components in your browser, that may not support, right? At the time, it will throw an error message. But the basic JavaScript files, whatever you are writing, so that can be run in the client as well as on your server. So from Varun, we have a question. What are the uses of Node.js in real life applications? Mainly if you ask me, you can build an application within a small span of time. For example, just you need to create one RESTful API and connecting with this databases. Maximum 5 minutes. You can create one application. Next one is, we should be able to have this push mechanism in our Node.js. So what does it mean by push mechanism? Normally, each and every traditional web application will be having the request response handling. So from the client side, we will be passing the request. Once you get all this request from the client to server, we'll analyze those requests, then we'll be giving a response to it. But instead, I don't want to send any other request from the client. Just I want to push some particular message to the client from server. How can I do it? So actually, where do we need this one? This is like a chat application, right? So you won't be sending any other request to the server, but when some other people sending some message to you, at the time that message will be passed or pushed to your client. So this one we can achieve using Socket.io. This is one more module available in the NPM. If you use this particular module, we should be able to get this kind of push mechanisms in the Node.js. This is the one of the next main thing I used to tell. This is for real-time applications. From Ajit, we have one more question. To access the server-side code from the client side, should we be using HTTP calls from Angular? Exactly. So if you want to access the direct file itself, what we can do is normally you can give the same path in your HTML. Just you can include it as a normal script file. So you should be able to access it in the client. But if you want to expose it as a RESTful APIs, then you wanted to get it as a response. At that time, we will be using $HTTP from our client if you are using Angular. Otherwise, if you are using jQuery or anything else, we'll be using $Ajax. So we'll call this exposed RESTful APIs and we'll be able to get all the responses. Then from Rajashekhar, we have a question. Does Node RESTful API gives a JSON format? Yes, exactly. So that also we'll be seeing in few minutes. So what you can do is you can create a RESTful APIs which gives the JSON object to your client. But now today in this particular webinar, what we are going to do, we won't be having any other UI. We'll be creating or we'll be exposing all the RESTful APIs in Node. Then we have some kind of REST client or Postman, right? So using that, we'll call this RESTful APIs and we should be able to get all the response. That we can do it in few minutes. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So we discussed about the Node.js and NPM. Next one is the Express framework. In Node.js, there is a n number of frameworks available out there in the market like Copy, Koa, and Express. So why so this Express is so much famous? One is it is really simple compared to the other frameworks, and it is having the middleware and routing concepts and all this creating server and listening for this particular code. Everything is really simple. Next one, there are two, because it is simple, so we have n number of users are using this Express framework. Then when you are using this Express framework, if you are getting into any other trouble, so you can post your questions in the forum, you'll be able to get the answers. And the main advantage of Express, what I feel now is, recently there is one more thing called strong loop. So Express also is using the strong loop for all the APIs and other information. This is the basic advantage of Express. So it is having some other advantages also, like we can use the middleware and the router you can create that is available in all other frameworks, and you can create all these viewport engines also. For example, some people will build all these views, that is whatever you have the presentation layer, right? That using normal HTML, but some people wanted to render it something else like Jade or EJS or this kind of things. If you want to build me, you should be able to set all these template engines, and in the same time we have a good error handling mechanism also in our Express. So if you don't want to use the error handling mechanism directly, we can go over there and we can use our normal try catch block. So however we used to use this try catch block in Java, JavaScript, in the same way we can use it in the Node layer also. Okay, let's go there and we'll build a basic RESTful API using this Express. So let's go to our program. Now I want to create a new program. Okay. So let me create a new folder, or let's start from here. So I'm going to call it as server.js. Okay. Now on this particular file, I wanted to use Express framework. So how can we install Express framework locally in my machine? So as usual, just let's go to the terminal and use npm install to install this Express framework or Express module inside your local application. So npm install Express. So it will take a few seconds to install the Express module. Let's wait for it. So you can see it right here. It is just keep on spinning. Okay, now we got this Express module. So let's go over there. The same way, let's see what are all things we have. One is app.js. Last time whatever we created. Next one we have one directory, that is node modules. Then we have server.js. Let's go into the node modules. So if you see inside the node modules, you can see whatever we install for our first example. The Chalk also is available. Another one we installed Express now, that is also available in this node module. So now we can build our basic program. So let's go over there. I wanted to use this Express in my program. So let's go where Express equal to require of Express. Now we should be able to get this Express module, and this particular instance or this particular functionality of Express module will be available in your Express variable. Then what you need to do is where app equal to Express. So now whenever you call it as a function, it will call the constructor of your Express, and this particular instance will pass to the app. So each and every methods and variables, whatever we have it in the Express, you can access it via this app variable. Okay, now it is ready. Here what I want to do is I want to create a quick server. How can I do it? It is really simple on the Express. So app.listen to particular port. So I wanted to listen to port number 9000. If you want to listen to specific IP, you can pass the IP also right here. If you are not passing any IP, that will be listening to your local host. But I want to run the server in my local host. Just I'm going to give listen to port number 9000. Next, once it starts listening, if you want to do some kind of login, okay. Once it started listening to this particular port or anything else, just go to function. So it is a callback method. This is what we are using, calling it as a callback method. Once it starts listening to this particular port, it will call its one callback method. So inside the callback method, you can do a basic operation, say console.log server listening to port 9000. Just you can keep it as a 9,000 because we have a static code, so you can give it like this. Now we created a server. This is how we'll be creating the node server. It's pretty simple, isn't it? So let's start this particular server. Let's go over there, clear, and node server.js. So your server has been started and now it's listening to port number 9000. Okay. Now the server is ready, but I wanted to create some kind of RESTful APIs. How can I do that? Let's go over there. Let's create a RESTful API. So how can we create it? First, app dot. I want to create a get method. So this app is nothing but your instance of your express. So this instance is having a method called get. So I want to create a get method and the URL is slash get users. Then once it calls this particular method or particular URL, so I wanted to create a callback function which will be having your request and response object. So the function which is having request and the response. Now once you make a call to this get users, you can see whatever the request object you are getting. If you want to pass any parameter, you can pass it, or body, whatever you want to do, just everything you can do it on this one. Then you have to give some response. So now I'm just going to hardcode the response. Response.json of whatever response I wanted to give for this particular API. So message is data from get user. In the same way, I wanted to create one more service also. So app.post. So sometimes I wanted to post the data. Post save user. Then it will be having its own function, the callback function of request and response. And in this request and response, you can print your request body also. Console.log, print your request body. Then you can print your response JSON. Whatever response you wanted to pass it to the viewer, you can put it over here. You want to give the response as message data from post. Now our server also is ready and we expose the RESTful APIs. So how can we access this RESTful API? One, you have to use the RESTful client, otherwise we have to build the screen UI screens. But now we are not going to build any other UI screens. So let's use RESTful REST client or Postman to access this RESTful APIs. Let me save this and restart the server. Then only we will be getting all the changes. Clear and restart. Now it is listening to port number 9000. So I have a Postman. So using the Postman, I should be able to call the service and we can get all the information. So right here, I'm listening to localhost port number 9000 and slash get user. So we are getting the message saying cannot get user. Let's check what is the URL we have. So it is get users. So that's why it is throwing the message. Let's copy get users in. So now you can see whatever the message we gave from our program, that is coming as a response. So we created a basic RESTful API using the Node.js. But now I wanted to post the data. Here is the simple trickiest part. So let's go over here, set it as a post, and I want to make it as, what is it? Save user. Save user, and I can send anything in from the post. So let me make it as a raw, and I wanted to pass the JSON object. Name is user1 and age is 32. Then skill, I wanted to keep it as an array which will be having everything, many things like Java, Node, Angular. Okay, so now I have this JSON object. I want to post this JSON object to the RESTful API. Next, you can see it in the program also. Once you get this data, I'm printing this particular body. So let me keep some message also. Body equal to. So we'll be getting that message, and whatever we are printing, that should be available in our console. So let's restart the server. Node app server.js. It is listening to port number 9000. Let's go over here and hit this. Whenever I send this, you are getting the proper response, whatever we send in from our post. So that is message data from post. If you see it over there, the body is undefined. Whatever JSON object we passed, that we are not able to read. So why is it? Because whatever JSON object you are passing from there, it can't compile it. It can't compile your body. So just it will be considering there is some data, but you can't read it in your node. So to compile your body of your request, what we can do, there is one more NPM module available that is called body parser. So let's go back to the terminal and install that body parser into our application. NPM install body parser. Okay. So this is wrong spelling. So that is npm install body hyphen parser. Now I install body parser also with my application. So okay, I got this body parser. So how can I use it inside this application using the required? You can get this body parser. Let's go back to this program. I want to use this where body parser equal to require of body parser. So here you have to give the same name whatever the available package name is there. The same name you have to give it right here in the require. Okay, now we got this body parser. Now how can each and every request I want to pass this body? So do you want me to write everything in each and every request? That is not a correct way. I can have n number of requests in the application. So each and every request I can't write it. So here only there is a one more concept called middle layer in our Node.js. So if you configure anything in the middle layer, each and every request first goes through the middle layer, then it will get the success validation, or if you want to write anything also you can write it in the middle layer. Otherwise, once it is success, then only it will come for your RESTful APIs. So here we are going to configure the middle layer for our application. So how can we do it? So to configure the middle layer, what we can do is app.use of just you have already body parser, just call it body parser. Body parser. Now each and every request will go through this particular middle layer, and the middle layer using the body parser, so that particular request will be passed and you can get whatever the JSON object you are sending from your UI, you can get all the JSON objects. So let's see what happens now. So I'm going back right here, clear, and start your server. Not this server.js. Okay, now it is started and it is giving the message saying error, server listening to port number 9000. Let's go back to the postman. Let's post this particular same request again. Whenever I post this request, I got the message saying data from the post, and if you see it in the terminal, you can see whatever JSON object you sent from the body, so you can get all the things. So now you can read this JSON object and you should be able to make it. So now I'm going to make it really simple, and I don't want this much big. Let's make it a skill, and I want only Node.js. Okay, let's send the data. You can see this data, name user 1 and age 32, skill Node.js. So we exposed all this REST APIs in Node.js. Okay, but if I expose the REST API, that doesn't make sense. First, if I want to do anything on the server side, I want to get the data from the client and store it somewhere else, any other DB. So how can I do it? Now, in this particular webinar, we are going to discuss about the MongoDB. Let's store data. Whatever you have now, just put it in the MongoDB. And if you want to get, just query the MongoDB, get all the information, whatever you have. So let's go back to the slide and let's see what we have it for MongoDB. Okay. This is the basic example what we have seen for Express. We included the Express framework. Next, we created the basic routing. So this is what we call all the RESTful APIs, or we can call this as a routes. Next one, your app should listen for some particular port, and once it started to the port, you can access your application with this specific port. This is the basic things about Express. So we created this kind of a RESTful APIs using get or post. So if you want to get any of the data, you can create like app.get, the API name or the URL name. So you should be able to call that method, write all your logics over there. So in the same way, you can create like a get, post, put, telnet, whatever methods is supported in the normal HTTP. Everything is supported in this Node.js also. Okay, now we already seen the demo of RESTful APIs and Express. Next one, MongoDB. So what does it mean by MongoDB first? Okay, before we go into the MongoDB, do you guys have any other questions on Express or creating RESTful APIs? If yes, please post your questions. From Ashraf, we have one question. How can we redirect our response to some other page or other link? So here, mostly we'll be using this Node.js on the mean stack development. In the mean stack development, it is not like a traditional application. Once you get the response, redirect this to some other pages. In the same page itself, you can get the response, you can display it. Otherwise, we can write all this routing concept in our client side also. But anyway, you are asking for that. What we can do is there is one more method. Instead of response.json, you can response.redirect to some particular URL. So that will redirect your page into some other things. But normally when we use this kind of latest technologies, we won't be having the same redirect methods. Again, from Rashid, we have a question. So Node provide MVC pattern? Yes. So using the Node, you can build the application with MVC framework that provides it. Do you guys have any other question regarding the Express or creating the RESTful APIs? If yes, please post your questions in the question window. Okay, so let's go into the next slide. So we have seen Relay Express. Next one is MongoDB. So if you want to store any other tabular structured data, we can go ahead, we can use the normal SQL or Oracle. But I don't want to store the data in the tabular structure. I have a full JSON object mostly, but nowadays whatever we are doing, we will be doing with the JSON object only. So convert the JSON object into the tabular format and again put it over there, then get the tabular structured data, convert into a JSON. So there is a lot of work needed. Instead of that, whatever JSON you are passing from the UI, you should be able to save the same JSON object. Okay, so how can you do that? For that, we'll be using the MongoDB. MongoDB is not just tabular structured data, so you can use JSON, any type of JSON object, you can store it in this MongoDB. Okay, so I have a MongoDB, but how can I connect to MongoDB from this Node.js? So in the Java, we'll be having some kind of drivers like a JDBC or ODBC drivers. Using those drivers, we'll be able to connect to the database, right? Like this. How can we connect? Here again, we need one more module called Mongoose. So using that Mongoose module, we should be able to connect to our databases. Let's see how can we do that. Let me go back to the terminal. So I wanted to install Mongoose module for this application. So npm install Mongoose. So what it will do is it will pull this Mongoose module from this npm repository and it will put it in our local machine. So let's wait for this. It will take like a few seconds. So now we install the Mongoose module also. Now I wanted to access this Mongoose module in my application, and let's configure the Mongoose. First, go over there where Mongoose equal to require of Mongoose. So now we will be able to get this Mongoose module. Next one, right here in the Mongoose, what are the things you need? First, you have to connect to the MongoDB and particular database. So to connect to that, first let me start the MongoDB server. So I wanted to start the MongoDB server. So now my MongoDB server has been started, and now it's listening to port number 27017. So I wanted to connect to this particular MongoDB server only. So how can we connect? Here in Mongoose, we have a way for it. So the full functionalities, everything will be available in this particular variable. Okay, so Mongoose dot connect. So just pass the configuration. MongoDB :/ and wherever you have. So I have this MongoDB running on my local. So local host the port number. So it is running on 27017. Next, you have to give your database name. So for this application, I am going to call it as a demo1. My database name will be demo1. Now we have connected to this MongoDB. But if you want to post the data, here in the MongoDB, however, we have tables in the SQL. In the same way, we will be having a collection. So collection will be having a number of records. So before we create a collection, you have to specify the schema for that specific collection. Then only you can make sure, okay, so you can add the validations and whatever you wanted to write, just you can write it in this schema itself. So let's go over there. Let's create a schema where schema equal to new Mongoose dot schema. Whatever schema you wanted to do, just pass the schema right here. So my schema in my collection, I wanted to have a schema something like I want to have one field called name and another one field called age, then one more thing called skill, right? So let's go over there and let me create a field name. So name, and I want this name should be a string. Then I want to have one more field called age, and this should be a number. The last one I want to call it as a skill. So this also can be a string. Okay, now we have created a schema for your collection. Okay, so now we have a schema, but we have to give this particular schema to a collection, and we have to bind this schema to the collection. So how can we do it? So for that, what we can do is where user, this is what we are going to call it as a collection, and Mongoose dot model of your collection name. So whatever the collection name you have, just pass that collection name right here. I'm going to call it as the users, and for this particular collection, if you have any other schema, just pass that schema. I'm going to pass this schema to this collection. Now we connected to the MongoDB and we created a schema for a particular collection, and we appended that particular schema to this users collection. Now everything is ready. Now we are good to go. Now here what I need to do is, whenever they post some data, I wanted to write something inside this collection. So how can we do this? Let's go over here. So this is where our post. Let's go over here, remove everything. So we have our collection name is user.create. So this is one more method is available in the Mongoose to put any other data to the collection. We'll be using this. Create. So whatever data you have, so we'll be getting all the data from the request body. So I'm going to pass directly request body, request dot body, comma function of. So here it will be having its own callback method. First will be a error, and another one will be a your object. Here first check whether it is a error or not. If error, give the response message saying response.json, your status will be error and your message will be whatever the error you are getting, just pass that error. Yes, so if you are not getting any other error, you can pass, okay, it is created successfully, right? So return response.json status success and message or data. So whatever data we are getting, just we can pass that particular object. Now everything is ready. So let's start this server and let me start this node server.js. So now it is started and listening to port number 9000. So what we can do is already we have our post method which post this particular one. Let's click on send. Let's see what we are getting as the response. Whenever I click on send, you can see we are getting the response as success. So the bottom you can see it over here. You can see the status as a success and whatever data you posted, the data will be available and it will be having some two extra fields. One is your underscore ID. This will be the unique field what is generated by the Mongo, and another one is underscore v. It is a version of your document. In the same way, you can pass n number, you can put n number of data into this particular database. But now I'm going to make one mistake. So the age normally accept for a number, but I'm going to mark it as a string. Then let's click on set. So here you can see it over there. So whenever you are marking the data type as a number, but if you pass a string, it will throw an error saying, so mongoose validation error, and here whatever the error message we got, that will be thrown here. Normally it will go to the REST API. In the REST API will be having the error method. If that error message will be captured on that error, and we will be getting those error messages right here. So this is how we will be basically exposing the web API. Instead of the string, let me make it as a proper number and send. We should be able to get all these numbers, right? So now we can put all the data. Now this is fine, but I want to get the data also. Just the posting the data is done, but how can I get the data from our Mongo server? So it is really similar to the posting the data. Just delete it. So from this particular collection, I want to get the data. To get the data, we have a method called find. So if you want to add some kind of condition, get the data where name equal to this one. So you can add those conditions as a JSON object here, but I don't want any other condition. Just empty, comma, it will be having its own callback method of let's keep the callback method, error, and your user list or users. Then again we have to validate it whether it is error or not. If error, throw the same message whatever we have. Yes, so we'll be having the message saying status is success, and whatever data is available in the MongoDB, just give that particular user information. So now we saved everything. Let's restart the server. We're done, and I restarted the server node server.js, and let's go back here and click on the get users. Whenever you post the data, okay, sorry, it is a get method, that's why it is showing the error message. So now let's make it as a get and post the data. Now you can see whatever data you posted, all the information you got it from your MongoDB. So isn't it pretty simple to create the RESTful API and store and get the data using MongoDB, using Express and Mongoose. So this is how we'll be able to communicate with the MongoDB from our node layer. So we have seen the demo of MongoDB with Mongoose API. So do you guys have any other question regarding this Mongoose or any other question regarding this node? If you have any other questions, please post it in your question window. So if you don't have any other questions, fine. So what you can do is, if you are getting any other question, just you can post your question to our support, Edureka support also. Otherwise, so if you have any other questions, or if you want to get the projects whatever we build it in the session, if you want to know about this, just write a mail to our Edureka support. We will be able to respond for your mail. And thanks guys for attending this session. And so before we end the session, we have one more question. So from Sarangi, we have a question. Can we get this recording of the session? Exactly, you can get it. So this recording of the session will be available in our Edureka website. So please visit the website. You should be able to get these recordings. And if you want to get this program, whatever we used in our session, also please send a mail to our support. We should be able to give those questions to you. So do you guys have any other question regarding this Node.js or building a real-time application? Okay. So once again, thank you very much guys for attending this session, and please keep learning and build some kind of node modules and submit to our NPM repository. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye bye.